Hey everyone, my name is Nick, and I had this dream this morning, April 14th, as of filming of this video, and I basically started making this video as soon as I got out of bed because I really wanted to share it with you all. So I will describe the dream first and then come back at the end for an explanation of the symbolism that I believe I saw in the dream and what it means for me and for the events that I think it's indicating. And if you don't have time to watch the full video, a super short version of this dream is that basically the Earth and society as a whole receives a message that our planet is being freed from some kind of negative or controlling influence. And then we now have the ability to freely rebuild and improve society as a result of not having to deal with that negative influence anymore. So even though this was very shocking and disillusioning to most people in the dream, it still was a positive message. So I'll now sort of describe the dream and come back at the end with an explanation. In the first part of the dream, I remember being in a house, and I was part of a plot to kill some authority figure, like the head of the household. And the authority figure was part of my own household, so like I was living there, as if it were my parents or maybe like a guardian or something like that. But I remember not being close to them at all. In the dream, I had my sister or my brother with me, and we were both planning this. I remember searching through cluttered, really junky cabinets to find weapons we could use, and I remember finding guns. I remember feeling very uneasy about finding them and thinking about what I had to do, but I felt like it was the only option. I next remember being in a really crowded store like a Target or something similar. I was looking at my phone doing something, but then I noticed the PA system in the store, which was playing store announcements or basic store music or something, began to have static, like similar to when you're between radio stations while driving in your car. Another voice began to speak over the PA system, and it began to explain that our world had been taken over by extremely negative people or beings, and that the way we all lived was going to change. And that whoever was sending this message was part of the group of people trying to free us and remove the negative influence and help us improve the planet and transition to new ways of living on it. I got the sense that whoever was sending the message wasn't an angel either, but they were at least on the side trying to help. At first, the messages on the PA system had static, or like the messages weren't stable, like the store was fighting back against the messages. But soon the store couldn't stop them, and they came through very clearly and powerfully. I remember being excited and wanting to call family and friends asking if they could hear the messages. I remember receiving calls from family and friends asking me to help them hear it, and to tell me that some of them could hear it too. Next, I remember, whereas previously I was hearing the message on a PA system, it was now like I was immersed in an extremely vivid hologram by comparison. It seemed like I was staring up directly into space or floating in space while receiving the message. I saw shapes moving around in the sky, which I thought may have been ships. There were dozens and dozens of them. I remember hearing a similar message, but this time it was so much clearer and much more powerful, and it was like it was right inside my head. I remember seeing what looked like different options laid out before me, which took the form of 3D topographical relief maps floating in a line in space. The message I was receiving was explaining that these were the different things we could do to improve the planet now that we were free of the negative or constrictive influence. I got the sense that these were things like, here's how we can improve the economy, or here's how we can improve food or infrastructure and other basic necessities. I remember wanting to see one in more detail, and the one I chose was sort of zoomed in for me. It still had the appearance of a topographical map, but I could see so much more detail and almost walk around in it, and in my mind it sort of took the form of a Minecraft map. When this sequence of receiving these messages was over, I remember being back in the store, and then walking out of the store extremely happy. And I was running up and down the street saying things like, I can't believe it's finally happening. But then I noticed there were many people outside, sitting on the sidewalk and sitting on the road everywhere. It was like things just stopped. I got the sense that the impact that this message had on them was simply too much, at least for now. Many people were disillusioned and confused and scared by the enormity of everything that had just happened, and many people were simply in shock. It was somewhat chaotic after everyone received this message, in some ways. Not violent, but rather everyone was just unsure about what to do now. I remember following someone down the street to a drugstore, feeling like I needed to see who they were, and the drugstore was filled with people all pushing and shoving to get what they needed. The person I was following turned out to be Spider-Man, but no one seemed to care or notice him. He swallowed something the pharmacist gave him, whatever his medication was, and told the drugstore owner that I would pay for it. I remember being surprised that it was him, and that he needed me to pay for it for some reason, but I was fine with it. And I woke up shortly after this. So as far as the meaning is concerned, a lot of times in dreams, the feeling is more important than the specific imagery, although the specific imagery and the feeling are related. So everybody's symbolism in dreams will be a bit different, and if you pay attention more to the feeling and sort of where that feeling comes from and why you feel that way about the particular symbol, it can help you decipher the meaning of that particular dream for you. So let's take a look at some of the meaning that I think is behind the symbolism in the dream and what it might mean for the events that I think are going to unfold very quickly and very soon in terms of society and the world in general. So in the first part of the dream where I'm in the house and I feel like it's an authority figure and that it's my parent or my guardian, I think that has something to do with the sort of feeling or the recognition that the people in positions of authority in general are very corrupt or very abusive, and wanting to kill them essentially is like a very negative response. But the only thing I could think of, or that people in general could think of at the time, in order to stop them from being so corrupt or so abusive. So I don't actually go through with it in the dream. I don't think that's what's going to happen sort of in society in general. I think something else will intervene, and we will have already passed the necessity for something like that before it ever comes to that, whatever that could possibly be. So being in a crowded store, I think, is just being in the hustle and bustle of life and trying to provide for yourself in the way that you need to do in order to live. So in the midst of everyone doing these seemingly mundane things, there's this interjection from something completely out of the ordinary and completely not mundane and completely different to what we normally think of as what is real and how society and reality works. Now, the sort of message coming from space, or possibly beings that have access to space technologically, I think speaks to the idea that there's kind of like a hidden component to the way society runs and the people who have access to certain technology that most people don't. And I think, at least according to the dream, that people who have access to that technology, at least some of them, want to give that technology and sort of uplift the living standards of people on the planet as a whole with that technology. And I think that those people, at least in the dream, are the ones who are sending the message and trying to push back against the extremely negative force that wants to keep humanity essentially in a state of survival and preventing them from growing and spiritually evolving and being able to live in a much more harmonious and much higher standard of living than we would otherwise be able to. So seeing all the people sitting in the street with their head in their hands and seeing everyone really sad and dejected, I think was just indicates the shock that this kind of event will have to most people's sense of reality and sense of what's possible, and just like the rug is totally pulled out from everyone's understanding of the world and how things supposedly work. And the few people who sort of are waiting for this event and really are looking forward to it are those who have been sort of paying attention to more esoteric things, more spiritually based understandings of reality all along, and who have sort of been expecting or hearing about something like this possibility before it even happens. And I think those people, and I guess that includes myself, will be partially responsible for helping to acclimate people who have no sort of framework for understanding these things into sort of new understanding of the world and how things actually work that will be revealed when something like this actually happens. So as far as Spider-Man goes, Spider-Man I think has always been my favorite superhero ever since I was a kid. And I think it's about representing or being a symbol of that sort of heroic quality and standing up against overwhelming odds and doing so with extraordinary abilities that most people would not even consider possible. So I think it just has to do with whoever this group of people are or person is who has these abilities is actually using them heroically to help humanity at large, even if humanity at large is kind of in a chaotic state and doesn't really recognize the heroic deeds of that group of people or person. Like in the drugstore, nobody cared that it was Spider-Man. I think they were just too busy trying to do what they always do in response to an emergency event, which everyone should do. But I think eventually the symbolism is indicating that, like, maybe they will recognize the heroic deeds, but only after they've begun to acclimate to the new way that the world works and begin to have a greater understanding of those things that have been kept hidden from them for so long. So that's my interpretation of my own dream based on what I felt the symbols were actually indicating. And I do think that this dream has some relevance to events that are actually going to play out. And I think based on the feeling that I got in the dream, very soon. And I think that the way that the world works is not going to be the same for very long. And we're going to be made aware of a lot of things that have been kept hidden from us related to sort of the reason that the world is in this sort of economic and social state that it's been in for so long. But we'll see what those events are. I really think that this is something that's going to happen relatively soon, and that's part of the reason I wanted to make this video and share this pretty quickly. And hope you all are doing safe during this quarantine time. Hopefully that will not last too much longer. But take care, everyone. I hope you liked the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks.